Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Joint Public Workshop for the Priority Water Body Lists and Schedules for the Central Florida Water Initiative. We're going to just give it another minute or so to see if we've got any additional attendees coming in. Okay, everyone, it looks like our attendee list, the number has stopped growing here for the most part, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, welcome to the Joint Public Workshop for the Priority Water Body Lists and Schedules within the Central Florida Water Initiative area. This workshop is being presented by the 3 water management districts in that Central Florida Water Initiative, and that's St. Johns River, Southwest Florida, and South Florida. So this is a Zoom meeting. We're going to give the general rules here at the beginning about public comment. So if you're participating via the Zoom app, you will use the raise your hand feature. And if you are participating and joining us by phone, *9 will raise your hand, *6 will mute or unmute you. We are going to ask that you hold your comments until the end of today's workshop, and we'll have a time then for any questions and comments. So my name is Natalie Kraft. I represent the Resource Protection Team at the South Florida Water Management District. Presenting with me today is Andrew Sutherland from St. Johns River Water Management District and Doug Leeper from Southwest Florida Water Management District. I'm going to begin today's workshop with some background information about minimum flows and levels, water reservations, and the Central Florida Water Initiative. And then we will transition to presentations on each district's priority water body list. And some of us will be presenting just on the CFWI area, and then there's also some additional information about district-wide priority water bodies as well. And then at the end of the workshop today, we will open it up again to stakeholder questions and comments before we adjourn at the end of the morning. So to start off, I'll give some high-level definition about the topic of today's workshop. So priority water body lists that are developed by each water management district, they contain that district's planned work for the upcoming years on minimum flows and minimum water levels, or MFLs, as well as water reservations. So water management districts, or in some cases, the Department of Environmental Protection, they are statutorily required to establish MFLs at the point at which further withdrawals would be significantly harmful to the water resources of the ecology of the area. So this is part of what drives the work that we do regarding MFLs. And then we also have water reservations. So water management districts may reserve water from consumptive use that is required for the protection of fish and wildlife or public health and safety. So these are the 2 components that are included on our annual priority water body lists. And the water bodies that are included on these priority lists, we evaluate them for their state and their regional importance, as well as the existence or potential for significant harm to that water body. So water bodies that are already experiencing or are reasonably expected to experience adverse impacts in the future, those are included in these priority water body lists. And as we go through and we develop MFLs, we can choose to subject them to independent scientific peer review. If you've been involved at all, I know Southwest has recently gone through a peer review for one of theirs. So it's something that we do for some of our MFLs and our water reservations as we get the science that's needed for the protection of fish and wildlife or public health and safety. Also, these water bodies, the water bodies that could be affected by withdrawals in an adjacent water management district are identified in our priority lists. And this is especially relevant for today as we are focusing in on the Central Florida Water Initiative area, and that spans an area where 3 districts converge. So the general process for our annual priority lists are, each district has MFL and water protection, resource protection staff. We develop these lists based on what we expect to be working on in the next few years, whether it be new MFLs or new water reservations or reevaluations of existing protections. So we create these, we present this list to our governing boards for approval. For the most part, that's going to be happening in October or September for these 3 districts. And then we are required to submit these to the Department of Environmental Protection for review by November 15th. So we do seek stakeholder input on all of these. The information that's shown here on the screen is how to get in touch with each of the panelists today and the deadlines that we request your written comments by. So these are October 1st for St. Johns River, September 7th for Southwest Florida, and September 30th for South Florida. Also to step back and give a little bit of an overview before I get into the CFWI area specifically, just wanted to show a map of the 5 water management districts in Florida. So you can see here we've got Southwest Florida, St. Johns River coming up down the eastern coast, and then South Florida here at the bottom. And the Central Florida Water Initiative area, I'm going to show a map, is going to be in this area where the 3 districts converge. And here we are. So the Central Florida Water Initiative is a collaborative process, and it is not just these 3 districts. It crosses these 3 district boundaries, but it also involves the Department of Environmental Protection, the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, so all of the public water supply utilities that are within this area, and then a variety of other stakeholders who have a stake in this area and the water resources that are here. So it does include portions of Orange, Osceola, Polk, Seminole, and Southern Lake counties. And this actually evolved from a more informal process several years ago that was called the Central Florida Coordination Area and the efforts that they were doing. And it was more formalized now into this Central Florida Water Initiative. So to give a little bit of some of the recent history as well, new rules were adopted in 2021 that govern the consumptive use of water within the CFWI area, and those are shown in Chapter 6241 of the Florida Administrative Code. And then also we have within 6241 is a requirement for this meeting today, which is a meeting the meeting today, we have a meeting, we are required to have a meeting with the DEP prior to this, which we did actually have last week. So we've met the requirement to meet with DEP, and now we have this workshop today. So with that, I am going to hand it off to Andrew with St. Johns River, and they're going to present the draft priority list for their district.
Thanks very much, Natalie, and good morning, everybody. Andrew Sutherland, the lead environmental scientist for MFLs within the Division of Water Supply Planning and Assessment here at St. John's. And Natalie, if you'll go ahead to the next slide. Mine's fairly short and sweet. This slide sort of encapsulates the reasons for the changes to this year's list. It's based on several things, including first, the recalibration of the CFWI groundwater model, the ECFTX, used for determining the effects of pumping on aquifer levels within the CFWI. This recalibration most notably has affected the schedules of the Wekiva River Basin systems. That's the Wekiva River at State Road 46, Wekiwa Springs, Rock Springs, and the Little Wekiva River. But it's also sort of cascaded through the rest of the schedule as well, and is affecting all the other CFWI systems on the list as well. In addition to recalibration of the groundwater model, the schedule of the Wekiva Basin MFLs has also been affected by other modeling efforts that we're doing, including improvements to the HECRAS model stemming from an effort to evaluate the effects of pumping on the area of wetlands inundated within the basin. similar sort of analysis that has been done by SwiftMud, if you're familiar with some of their recent MFLs. And the schedule's also been affected by continued metric development for Wekiva to ensure we're looking at all the relevant ecological and human uses within the Wekiva Basin. So finally, this schedule for Wekiva and the others has also been affected by or will allow for ample time for stakeholder collaboration for any prevention or recovery strategy development, should one be needed for Wekiva. And for in terms of strategy development, it's also why the Sylvan Lake MFL has been shifted as well. The draft report and peer review for Sylvan are completed, but the schedule was extended to allow time for strategy development, given that this lake is in prevention. Okay, Natalie, you can go to the next one. And so because of those reasons, driven by, again, metric development, groundwater model recalibration, some HECRAS modeling that we're doing in Wekiva, and allowing ample time for stakeholder collaboration for any strategy development that may be needed, it results in the following proposed changes for the 2022 list. Sylvan, Apshua, and Wekiva would move from 2022 to 2023. It's not known exactly at this time at what point within 2023 we'd be trying to adopt, but we feel like that's a prudent move, and then that will cascade through the schedule so that Johns and Pravat are moved to 2024, Crystal and Weir are moved to 2025, and then finally Griffin and Harris go from 2023 to 2025. Next slide. And as I said, this very short and sweet presentation, these changes would result in the following list and schedule. And we're holding questions to the end. So if you do have questions about the St. John's list and schedule, I'll take those at the end. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Doug Leeper at SwiftMud.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks, Natalie. My name is Doug Leeper. I'm the Minimum Flows and Levels Program Lead for the Southwest Florida Water Management District, which has already been referred to today as SwiftMud. That's what you may know us as. I'll mention our priority list and schedule. Both our current list and our proposed list is available on our website, and that's true for all three districts. Next, please. So before I get going on the proposed list, I wanted to highlight that we've established, the Southwest Florida Water Management District has established over 200 minimum flows and levels throughout the district in a couple reservations. And they include minimum flows and levels established for lakes, wetlands, rivers, springs, and aquifer systems. Next, please. I'm also going to briefly review our current schedule and where we're at in terms of that schedule. A number of water bodies are scheduled for completion in 2021, and the minimum flow and level work for those systems has all been done. The water bodies that are scheduled for this year currently are all on schedule, and we're collecting data and writing reports and so forth to get that work done. Next slide. Our current list includes water body scheduled for 2023 and 2024. All are on schedule. Most are on schedule. Data collection is ongoing for all of those to meet these targets. And a couple of the prioritized minimum flow and level efforts for 2023 are going to be delayed. And I'll talk more about those in a minute when I talk about our proposed list. Next, please. Okay, on to our proposed 2022 priority list and schedule. So there are no changes for the priority water body schedule for 2022. Again, we expect to get them completed in 2022. Rulemaking could bleed over into 2023, but we're keeping these on the radar for completion of the technical work this year. A couple of the systems in Polk, or excuse me, one system in Polk County is identified for a reevaluation, and that is within the Central Florida Water Initiative area. In 2023, no changes are proposed for the reevaluation of 3 additional Polk County lakes, which are all in the Central Florida Water Initiative area, as well as new minimum flows to be established for Charlie Creek and Horse Creek. As I mentioned earlier, we're planning on delaying the MFL establishment for a few water bodies, including the SWCA Swimmall, which I'll talk about in a minute, and the Braden River and Manatee River. Next, please. First, the SWCA saltwater intrusion minimum aquifer level. Again, we're planning to reschedule that for sometime after 2025, given that our SWCA recovery strategy is slated for if you will, a final assessment or an important assessment, given that 2025 was a target date for recovery of water bodies in the Southern Water Use Caution Area. So we'll be working on developing that recovery strategy assessment for 2025. And given that and some of the other things I'll talk about here in a second, we're suggesting and proposing that our reevaluation of the Southern Water Use Caution Area minimum aquifer level be delayed till after that 2025 date. And the 2025 date corresponds with the end date for our proposed priority listed schedule. So what is the saltwater intrusion minimum aquifer level? It's a minimum aquifer level established for the upper Florida aquifer system south of the Tampa Bay area. The little inset map shows the 10 wells, the red dots that correspond with the monitoring sites that are used to evaluate the minimum aquifer level. And the intent of this minimum aquifer level is to slow the rate of saltwater intrusion, basically to hold it at a rate that was established in the 1990s. The bar graph on the bottom shows a time series of water levels in those 10 wells from 1990 through 2021. It also shows the saltwater intrusion minimum aquifer level target elevation of 13.1 feet as the horizontal blue bar in that figure. The red wavy line is a time series. It's a moving moving average value for the well aquifer levels. And to achieve the minimum aquifer level, to fully achieve the Southern Water Use Caution Area minimum aquifer level, that target elevation of 13.1 feet has to be equal to or exceeded for 5 consecutive years. If you look at the recent year period, we've seen improvements in this region. And in fact, the target elevation has been achieved the last 4 years based on data through 2021. And the way things are looking now, we expect that that target will be achieved again based on the data being collected at the well sites this year. And so we're hoping and anticipating that this minimum aquifer level will be achieved for the first time since its establishment back in 2006. So based upon the need for us to complete a reevaluation of or assessment of the SWCA Southern Water Use Caution Area recovery strategy in 2025 and the recent groundwater levels in the region, including those shown here for the most impacted region that corresponds with the well locations of the saltwater intrusion minimum aquifer level, and the fact that SWCA wide and the Southern Water Use Caution Area represents basically the whole southern half of the Southwest Florida Water Management District. And we identified when we established this minimum aquifer level a target elevation of 600 million gallons per day of groundwater withdrawals in the region. And recently we've been averaging about 520 million gallons per day. So we seem to be hitting our targets for recovery in this region, and this minimum aquifer level seems to be trending up to being fully achieved for the first time ever as a result of our recovery efforts. In addition to further this effort, this reevaluation of this minimum aquifer level, we're in the process of developing a new saltwater intrusion minimum aquifer level, or excuse me, a new saltwater intrusion model that will help us assess salinities in the underlying aquifer system associated with the minimum aquifer level. So based upon these reasons, we're recommending that this minimum flow reevaluation be postponed from its currently scheduled 2023 till sometime after 2025 when we complete the SWCA recovery strategy assessment. Next slide, please. We're also recommending that we delay the minimum adoption or the development and adoption of minimum flows for the lower Braden River and the lower Manatee Rivers. These two river systems are two estuarine river segments that are down south of Tampa Bay that are downstream of two impounded segments of the river, including the impounded Manatee River to form Lake Manatee and the impounded Braden River to form Bill Evers Reservoir. Both these reservoirs have been used as water supply by the county and the city for many, many decades and have been subject to rigorous water use permitting requirements to minimize or mitigate for adverse impacts associated with the water use. So there's a long history of resource protection in these two river segments. In addition, the district staff have identified much higher priorities than the need to develop minimum flows for these river segments at this time. And I'll talk more about those in a minute. And for these reasons, we're rescheduling the development of minimum flows for the lower Braden River and the lower Manatee River for completion sometime after 2025. Again, the end date of our proposed party list and schedule. Next slide, please. So continuing with our proposed party list and schedule for 2024, there are no changes to those work that we've included on our current party list and schedule. We'll be reevaluating a number of lakes in the Southern Water Use Caution Area, again, to further support our recovery strategy assessment. And those reevaluations include reevaluations of several lakes in Polk County, which are in the Central Florida Water Initiative area. Next slide. We have new additions to our party list and schedule. 2025 work is now added to our 3-year list. And these high priority efforts include necessary reevaluations for river segments in the Upper Peace River, 3 different segments in the Upper Peace River that are within or lie within partially the Central Florida Water Initiative area. These minimum flows are being reevaluated to more fully develop minimum flows and levels that are based upon data that has been accumulated and tools that have been developed since they were first established back in 2006. In addition, we're slating the reevaluation or proposing or scheduling the reevaluation of the reservation that was recently established for Lake Hancock and Lower Saddle Creek. And that reservation basically was a reservation for the water stored in Lake Hancock and released to Lower Saddle Creek for recovery of the Upper Peace River. That reservation was established by rule in 2020, and the State Water Resource Implementation Rule requires the reevaluation or revision as necessary of all established reservations every 5 years. So we prioritize that work for 2025. Next question, or next slide, please. So our proposed party list and schedule includes a lot of work over the next few years, including the reevaluation or development of new minimum flows and levels for 22 river segments or lakes, as well as that reevaluation of the reservation for Lake Hancock and Lower Saddle Creek that I just mentioned. Next slide, please. I think that's all I've got, so I'll hand it off to Natalie. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Andrew. So I'm going to go into the South Florida's priority water body list, and this is going to focus mostly on the CFWI area for our district. But to see our full approved priority lists and the schedules, we do post them on our website in 2 different locations. One is sfwmd.gov/ourwork/MFL. I think you can actually also reach it by just sfwmd.gov/MFLs to reach it that way. We will also be publishing our 2022 list. This is for 2021. This is a screenshot I have for now, but we will be publishing our 2022 list in next year's South Florida Environmental Report, and that will come out early next year. So there's 2 places that we put our priority list for viewing once it's approved. But to focus in on CFWI, we actually do not have any water bodies proposed for the 2022 priority list within the Central Florida Water Initiative area. And that is because we look at larger ecosystems, or I'm sorry, larger water resource systems in a lot of our areas. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the one that is in the CFWI area and has been completed. But I do want to just also point out here, and it'll come up later as well, that our district-wide priority list, which includes some of our projects that will be, for the most part, supporting Everglades restoration projects, those will be presented to our governing board on October the 13th. So circling back to what is in our CFWI area, this is the Kissimmee River and Chain of Lakes water reservations. These were completed and the rules went into effect March of 2021. So if you were able to attend last year's joint meeting, you would have heard some of this already. But I just wanted to repeat it one more time. It is our most significant water protection in the CFWI region. It is an area that covers 172,500 acres, most of which was in that upper Kissimmee Basin, which is the portion of the portion of South Florida that is within the CFWI area. And this water reservation includes the upper chain of lakes, the headwater lakes, and the Kissimmee River and its floodplain. And the driver behind this water reservation, for at least portions of it, was to protect the public investment for the Kissimmee River Restoration Project. This, many of you may have heard of our Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, or CERP. This is actually a pre-CERP project that's been in the works for a long time. Construction on that project was completed last year. And so we have made great progress on the restoration of the river, removing some of the channelization that was there, and in getting the natural flow and some of those oxbows and the sheet flow back to that area. And these two water reservations, or combined water reservations for the Kissimmee River and the Chain of Lakes, helps protect that. So this is a map of the reservation water bodies. From Polk up is what's within the CFWI area. So this is a big portion of our contribution to the CFWI area. And we have the upper chain of lakes, which is those pink water bodies there at the top. And then we have the headwater lakes in the Kissimmee River, which is everything in the orange on the southern portion of it. And in addition to that, we have contributing water bodies, which are the water bodies you see in gray. So the water reservations we have in place for this, as I mentioned before, water reservations are there for the protection of fish and wildlife, and it reserves water from consumptive use. And so this is a multi-part reservation. With the upper chain of lakes, we reserved all the water in the lakes up to what we call a water reservation line, which is a specific stage in each lake. And if you were to look at the final water reservation and statute and things like that, you'll see several graphs that show the stage line as we go through the year, as it moves and we regulate these lakes. The reservation line is associated with that regulation schedule. So it's how much we needed for fish and wildlife in those upper chain of lakes. If you move down into the orange water bodies, which is the headwater lakes and the Kissimmee River, all the water in those water bodies is reserved from consumptive use. So it is all there for protection of fish and wildlife. And then we have the contributing water bodies as well as the surficial aquifer system, so that real shallow groundwater. And for those, we have put into place any quantity of water that in those water bodies in that aquifer system that is required for the protection of fish and wildlife is reserved. So it's a multi-part water reservation, and all of this does come with its own permitting criteria in our applicant's handbook for water use permits. And so there's several different rules. It is, I think, the longest water reservation in terms of just text length that we've put into place. But this is what we have to contribute for the most part to the Central Florida Water Initiative area. And it is several, if not, the majority of the water bodies within South Florida's portion of CFWI. And this is actually what the restoration is starting to look like. So I figured I'd end with that. And I'm going to leave this up here just for a second in case anyone needs to write down or take a screenshot of the email addresses here and the dates that we are requesting written comments to be submitted by. So again, for St. Johns River, it'll be October 1st, and you can send those to Andrew. For Southwest, it'll be September 7th, and those can be submitted to Doug. And for here at South Florida, our date for comments is September 30th, and you can submit those to me. And then also I wanted to leave on here the governing board meeting dates. These are when the districts are having their priority lists presented to their governing boards for approval prior to sending them to DEP. So those will all happen in about a week's time, a week span in October, the 11th, the 18th, and the 13th. And from there, I'm going to open this up to public comment and questions. Again, if you're participating via Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. And if you're participating via phone, *9 will raise your hand and *6 will mute and unmute you. So I will call out names as I see them for the raised hand, and we will unmute you. So the first one is going to be Gabrielle Milch. I think there we go.
Hello. Thank you, everyone. Today, my name is Gabrielle Milch, and I'm with the St. Johns Riverkeeper Middle Basin Program. And I appreciate all of your hard work and working on strategies for recovery and prevention of lake problems. I have a lake in Seminole County that I care about. It's a 29-acre lake. It's on the list. The drainage basin is about 698 acres. And the lake is kind of oligotrophic to mesotrophic, but it has algal bloom potential. And it's a highly urbanized lake, and it's in the very middle of the watershed from the headwaters of Lake Jessup. And Lake Jessup is actually the 14th largest lake in our state, or 13th largest state. And so I'm a little worried. We have, an MFL, a new one going to be put in, and I don't understand about what the goals of putting the MFL are, and what is the availability or appropriations, and what is the significant harm that you're talking about, and what's a balancing approach. And I read through a lot of your information. I understand it's on the priority list, and it is can be impacted by the OUC withdrawals from the regional model. And so I guess I just kind of said a lot, but I do have some questions, and I will be filling out, sending in some information. But if you could address my questions about, water availability, and what significant harm you're talking about.
This is Andrew, St. John's. Are we talking about Sylvan Lake? Did you say what lake you were talking about?
No, we're talking about Redbug Lake, but
Redbug. You didn't say the name of the lake, so I wasn't sure what you were talking about.
Well,
we're working on multiple ones in that area, and and actually we've not gotten to the point where we're having public workshops, but that'll be a really good opportunity where we can get into a lot of details about what the minimum levels for Redbug are going to be based on. In general, significant harm with our methodology is we're looking at whatever ecological and human beneficial uses we determine are most relevant for a given water body. In this case, obviously you have the county park there, and you also have some pretty, pretty nice, for an urban lake, pretty nice swamp ecosystem and marshes and other wetlands that are to the north and east around the lake. So we're doing field work out there currently, and we're modeling that system to try to look at the effects of water withdrawal on those wetland ecosystems. If there are human use elevations that we can look at, if there are dock related or boat ramp related or any other elevations we can look at that may impact human uses on the lake, we may look at those as well. For Redbug, it's mostly focused on the ecological metrics. It's not the case for all lakes. We do want to ensure that the use of the public at the Redbug Park is also maintained. But again, I think because this is a workshop for the priority list in general and not to get into the details of an individual MFL, I would say that the best option is to stay tuned on our MFL website. We'll be posting in the coming probably 6 months or so, when we have the draft Redbug MFL report. And that would be a case where you could look at that and come to the workshops or attend virtual workshops for Redbug, and we can get into the types of details that you're talking about. I think a priority list workshop is maybe not the best venue for getting into the details of Redbug, but we will be looking at the effects. I mean, the significant harm, again, will be those looking at those wetland communities and the effect of groundwater pumping on them. And so we're, MFLs are trying to strike a balance between both, between consumptive and non-consumptive uses in general. And we do have more information about MFLs in general on our MFL page, as do the other districts. So you can get sort of that general baseline information there as well. But again, I don't want to put you off, but again, the purpose of this, workshop is about the priority list and not an individual system in detail. But stay tuned in the coming months and go to our MFL page. I think Natalie can show again where our website, and we've started a Redbug page. We don't have the draft report there yet, but we will in the coming months. You can take a look at that. We'll also post the schedule for upcoming public workshops on Redbug, and we'll try to have those workshops in that area so that you don't have to drive a long way to come to those, or they may be virtual. And then that's probably the best way to get, then we can have some really in-depth conversations about Redbug, and we can determine what's important to you as well.
Okay, great. Well, then I'd like to pull up an elevation and talk about the Central Florida Water Initiative area within Seminole County in general. Of the MFLs listed, I believe of the 6 listed for the 2022 priority list, I guess 5 of them are in Seminole County. Is that accurate?
At least partly, yes. I think that's right.
So
I'm actually not staring at the list. I probably should be.
Okay, well, I mean, that's.
Yeah, we've got Crystal Lake, which is not that far from Redbug, and then the Wekiva systems are, in 2 to 3 counties, and then you have Sylvan, which I mentioned before, and Redbug as well. That's right.
Okay, well, I guess we will stay tuned in the future. Thank you.
Yep. You betcha.
Okay, thank you, Gabrielle. The next person with their hand up is Lisa Rinneman.
Good morning. This is Lisa Reineman, St. John's Riverkeeper, and this question is for Natalie and for Andrew. Natalie, at the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned that the CFWI would be looking at not only water bodies to be protected within CFWI, but also those adjacent to the area that would be impacted. The St. John's River is definitely impacted from water consumption within the CFWI area. But I don't see what regulatory tools are in place to protect the St. John's from saltwater intrusion and other impacts from overconsumption in this area. Natalie or Andrew, could you point me to what tools are in place or being considered for protecting the St. John's River?
Well, we certainly do have MFLs on the main stem. We don't right now have any saltwater intrusion MFLs that are similar to what Doug was talking about at this time. But I mean, as far as projects that are in the CFWI and the effect that they may have on the river, I think our best tools that we have right now are taking a look at those adopted MFLs that are on the main stem of the river. And there's 3 or 4. I mean, you've got everywhere from DeLand up through Monroe to State Road 50 and Lake Washington as well. So those would be our primary tools for looking at the effects of what's going on, whether it be groundwater pumping or any other type of project on the main stem at this point.
And then what we're seeing in the headwaters is that water levels are 3 feet below normal. And so I'm assuming that's something that's being picked up in the MFL discussion within the upper basin.
is that for Natalie? I know that we are currently modeling the upper basin, and I think that when that updated model is complete, one of the goals, I think it may even be next year, but I'm not sure. I'd have to talk to the modeling folks, is to take a look at those downstream MFLs that I just talked about with that updated upper basin model. Again, I don't know, I'm afraid, a lot, but we can get you that information, Lisa.
Okay.
You can, my email, I think Natalie showed my email. We can get you any
Yes.
information you want regarding what we're doing in the upper basin. I just don't have that information right here, right now.
Thanks, Andrew. And I'll email you. I do have that email. Thank you very much. But one last question, and then I'll email you to request some conversation one-on-one. But regarding the saltwater intrusion, and this may be for Natalie or someone for DEP, what tools are available to look at that? We're continuing to see saltwater intrusion further upstream within the lower St. Johns, and looking for, having those in place, as soon as we can before we continue to move forward without taking that into consideration.
So we at South Florida are working on saltwater intrusion tools, and in addition to sea level rise and climate change, it's all part of our resiliency efforts. Whether or not we have specific ones for that area, I couldn't say. But if you do go to the South Florida website, we do have a section there on resilience and climate resilience. So that might give you some of the answers you're looking for.
Fantastic. I'll take a look. Thank you for that.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, next is Angel Martin.
My first question on the main groundwater model, on the EC model, and it was recalibrated. Is there any information anywhere on how that was done? Were there any additional data used for the recalibration? And was that recalibration peer reviewed, as was the main model back several years ago?
I don't have all those specifics, Angel, but if you will send me those questions in an email, I'll get you that. Again, I think going into detail about modeling is probably not
right. Okay.
What the focus of this workshop should be, but if you get me those questions, I'll get you those answers.
Okay, but as you said, the results of the modeling is a main, as I understand it, is a main driver on the list and the scheduling for the
right.
list.
I mean, the model is doing a better job in the Wekiva Basin regarding observed versus simulated surficial
right.
in Upper Florida, and that that work has pushed the schedule. That was my point. But as far as those details that you're asking, I don't have those today, but I can get you those. I know the people who know.
Yeah, you don't know there's a separate report that's been done or an updated report.
No, I don't. And again,
Angel, this is Doug Leeper. I think that the Central Florida Water Initiative hydrologic analysis team has recently, posted a completed document.
Okay.
CFWI website. So look there. That might answer your questions, but you can still follow up with us, Angel.
Sure. And Doug, I'm glad you got on there. The other question I had for the SWACA saltwater intrusion model, you probably may not know this, but is there a document on that, on how how the model is being constructed? Whether it's going to be a transient model, is it going to be a steady state model? The boundaries and all that pertinent information, and how that model is going to be calibrated, because the saltwater intrusion models are usually more difficult to calibrate than just a standard groundwater model. And I would assume that CWAT is being used for the model. Do you know anything about that?
Angel, I don't.
Okay,
Or if I did, I've forgotten. But we did develop a model for the original development of this saltwater intrusion minimum aquifer level for the SWCA, and that's part of the process of the planned reevaluation. And we're
right.
working with a consultant on that. I do know that, and I know there have been some technical issues that have come up this past year.
Hmm.
So the model's running a little bit behind.
Okay,
With regard to what we have available in terms of interim reports, I don't know.
okay.
But we can, if you really want to know, contact me and I'll put you in touch with the right people here at Southwest Water Management District.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks, Doug. And
Yep.
the final kind of question or comment that I have, are there plans built into the priority list to keep looking at these models and maybe once there's 2 or 3 more years of hydrologic data are collected, to look at these models again and look at them from a verification point of view, see how the model is simulating and perhaps doing further recalibrations? I think that's an important point. I think, as we know, these models are not, they work well in some areas and they have a lot of limitations. Is there any plans built into this whole process of the priority list to look at the models on a systematic basis?
Well,
Angel,
this
we
is
at
Doug.
St. John's, we
Okay.
definitely do have those long range plans and it is built into the whole water supply planning effort, and MFLs is just one part of that, and the priority list is just one part of that. So
Right.
there are long range plans within each water supply planning region. We have 3 in our district, CFWI being just one of them.
Mhm.
And yes, there are long range plans that go into, taking a look at updating groundwater models, and then that cascades into updating MFL statuses, et cetera. And then it's not so much part of we do try to account for that, but the priority list, the schedules for an individual MFL sometimes do have to be bumped by groundwater model work because
Sure.
we don't have the
No,
latest and greatest. But it's
yeah.
it's an ongoing, it's this complex schedule with lots of different moving parts, and
Right.
it doesn't always line up, but the district is working on all of those groundwater models and updating them. But
Right.
so certainly it's something that's looked at, and we also are doing that with the surface water models and
With HECRAS and the other models,
the water budget models,
the water budget models.
Yeah.
The thing that I have sometimes, there are so many models that are being discussed here that sometimes I kind of knew that the ECFTX model was being recalibrated, but I think you need to be careful in making sure that, put this information out that which model is being used here, because I can see a year or 2 from now somebody asking about the modeling, and they may think that there's the original model is still being
it's all spelled out. It's all spelled out when we come out with the WCIVA report. It'll be spelled out what version.
Okay.
And someone in our water supply planning group just pinged me, and the report that Doug was talking about is in fact on the CFWI website, so you can go there to get it. I didn't realize it was up, but
okay. I looked for something 3 or 4 weeks ago and I didn't find anything, but I'll look.
Yeah.
I'll look again.
But you're right. Model versions change, and it's best available, and it continues to improve. So I think that's a given, but it's definitely all going to be documented.
Right. But not only that for consideration, but there's a new generation of the ModFlow model now that the USGS produces, and it's a more I won't get into deep, but it's a more graphical kind of approach to the modeling, and there are newer versions of the saltwater intrusion models, of the CWAT models that are coming out. So, you know, there might be issues sometime later on when somebody's looking at this and not the latest model, you know, the latest version of these models are being used. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, you use the version that's available and so forth. But it's, you know, when somebody's using one version, another person's using another version, you can run into some issues with that. So, and I'll leave it there. So, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Angel. I don't have any other hands raised at the moment, but I'm going to give it just a minute. Okay, we don't have any further hands raised. Again, if anybody has any follow-up questions or comments, you are more than welcome to email myself, Doug, or Andrew. Thank you all for your time this morning.
Thanks very much. Have a good one.
Yes, thanks all.